Should probably give the introduction. I do need dates from everybody, okay? So, everybody have a busy holiday planned or no? Are we feeling it? No response, 0. Jesus.
I have an extremely busy holiday plan.
Okay, excellent.
Fighting the power and putting it to the man.
All right, so we have another meetup that's going to be scheduled about a month from now. But what I'm really worried about is Engineers Beer Pong, which needs to be on a Saturday. I do have the location picked out. So we talked about this last time, and I could have sworn I would have had it last month, but I didn't. Saturday dates in November that could make sense. 25th is out. So when we start getting into December, it's a little bit too late. So does the 11th or the 18th work for everybody? Hands up if we got it. 11th? 6 people, okay. 18th? Same group. All right. Raise our hands for both if they both work. Yeah, work for everybody? All right. Just in case you missed this last time around, Engineers Beer Pong is we're going to basically give you a kit of materials.
I'm so pumped. I'm sorry, keep going.
You get a kit of materials, and you're basically going to be playing beer pong with these. You have to assemble the things at the day of, and we're going to be the schedule will be fairly aggressive. So, yeah, even if you don't win, but you're winning, then you'll move on to the next round. So.
There's another element we're thinking about adding to that, and that is that we're going to really test the user-friendliness of our UI for our private clouds. So we figured the more intoxicated people are playing, if they can orchestrate, we really did a good job.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, so I will see what the bar has for the 18th or for the 11th, and I will let everybody know.
Perfect.
This is IPAs and APIs, and go.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We're going to be beta testing tonight. This is a presentation I'll be giving at API Strat, the Linux Foundation's big networking conference, world conference in Portland at the end of the month. And we're beta testing everything. We're going to beta test the presentation, beta test the demo. So there's going to be some rough edges. Please enjoy and give me a little bit of patience. But I think we're okay. Welcome to Alchemy / CloudTrack's head, one of their center offices at this beautiful data center. We've just started at BitScoop, just started a partnership with CloudTrack and Alchemy to offer our services here, and I'll be talking about that in a bit. But this is a really exciting moment for BitScoop and our team, so I'll just get started. So BitScoop is a company that's been around for a little while now. You've probably seen us at APIs and IPAs, and we're here to show off some of our new tech. And naturally, we allow you to connect anything, and we're not overstating. There's some nice lines. You can see right here. We solve a really big problem in data. I'm sure you guys have smartphones, right? Smartphones update their apps all the time. You guys ever wonder why those apps are updating? It's because of this crazy reason. Those apps have dependencies. Most apps have about a dozen dependencies for social sign-in, analytics, connect to Dropbox. You probably see that one. Those are all done through software developer kits and application programming interfaces, APIs and SDKs. So, for instance, sign in with Facebook, right? The Facebook SDK is used to do that. Facebook updates its SDK that allows it to do like sign in or connect, share, all those great things inside your app. They update that SDK about 3 times a month. They do that because they're updating their API. So Facebook will update their API. Say they'll make a minor change to the way that you query photo albums. Well, that in turn affects about 8 to a dozen SDKs. One for Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, and that in turn affects about 100,000 different apps that are built on Facebook, which in turn affects like 1 billion installs, and you're probably affected by one of those installs as you watch your apps update. Well, BitScoop solves this problem. We created an elegant interface that allows you to integrate all those services into your app without having to constantly update your code base. That is the BitScoop platform. We are an abstraction and integration layer that sits between you and your data, you and your services. Yeah, there you go. Look, from chaos to symphony. Doesn't that look great? And you can think about this. Back in 1999, when you were building a startup, in the .com era, there was 4 steps to getting your company off the ground. Number 1, the hardest step, you actually had to build servers and wire them up to the internet. Number 2 was you had to get your data together, right? You had to actually build a database, file system, and actually get your data all integrated and modeled. Then the 3rd step came, and you had to actually write some logic. And then the last step, you built an interface. And back in '99, that was a website. Well, today, we don't do the first step anymore. We use cloud services like AWS or the amazing CloudTrek to actually provision resources and let them scale with us. We use actual servers as a service. We move on to the 2nd step nowadays, which is integration. We don't just integrate with like 1 or 2 file systems or databases. We have APIs, microservices, scraping, denormalized databases, normalized databases, graph relational databases, all these different places that we store data, all the external services we manage. And then we still make logic, except it's not just normal server and client logic anymore. We have new requirements like blockchain and machine learning. And then we build our interface, right? Our last step. Except we don't have like a website anymore. We have apps. We have Alexa skills. We have We have VR, AR, all these bots, all these different interfaces as well. So the landscape has changed, but it's also gotten a lot more difficult. And that's where BitScoop comes in. We've built an abstraction layer that allows you to not have to worry about the multitudes of different API sources you use. You can integrate all the different data you use into our platform, and then we unify it into one source. Just imagine developing off of a single database or a single API instead of all the multitudes of different sources that you usually have to deal with in traditional software development. Who here has to connect to like the Salesforce API or the Zoho API or the Facebook API, or has to use multiple APIs and SDKs every day to make their apps work? It's a prevalent problem. Imagine not having to deal with those updates, having to just deal with one source for all your information, not have to deal with 1,000 different ways to authorize and query and interact. So just to underscore that home, going back to my example of 1999 to here, just as AWS took servers and made it so you didn't have to build and connect your servers manually. AWS turned it into a service, hardware as a service. We're doing the same thing for data. We're making data just like a service, something that you provision and use, and it scales with you. Going in the wrong direction. And here you can see a little bit more. This is another diagram that kind of breaks this out in a little more detail. Connect all the services you use to the BitScoop platform, and you can access us through a unified API interface, or you can use one of our SDKs in the language of your choice and build whatever type of software you want. No meddling and muddling with all these different connections to your data. So from here, I'm going to show you an example of why this is such an amazing advantage for software development. We right now are actually going to show off one of our favorite examples. It's called OpsBuddy. We've been developing the OpsBuddy example for about 6 or 7 months now. It's our most popular template that people use to build on our platform. What it is it's a Alexa skill that allows you to get a little information on your stack through
This can help with that.
through APIs. So there's actually a bunch of different components to this demo, but we're going to focus on the Alexa skill. and I can do a really
This
cool.
can help with that. Do you want to try it?
This is the problem. Like, I have to not say that magic word. Well, let's see if it works right here. This is a.
To continue, please see your Alexa companion app. Sign into it.
All right, let's do one more time. This is a skill that actually connects a bunch of different services together to answer me questions about my stack. And if the demo gods are generous, this will work. Alexa, ask Ops Buddy, how is the stack doing?
There was a problem executing your request. Please try again. If this persists, please try again later, or let us know at support@bitscoop.com.
Alexa, ask Ops Buddy how the stack is doing.
There was a problem executing your
All right.
request. Please
Oh
try
my.
again. If this persists, please try again later, or
It-
let us know at support@bitscoop.com.
All right, cool.
That's why it's beta, right?
Yeah, this is why we're beta right now. But I'll have to say it worked it worked very well in the demo. So
I heard it. It worked.
yeah.
Let's go.
So-
I'm still sober.
I'll let you in a little secret. I'll let you in a little secret around here. It's actually not kosher to have Wi-Fi in a data center. So this whole thing is wired up with a Rube Goldberg machine of internet connection. It's actually going off my laptop right now, which is recording and live streaming the whole event. So we've had a little bit of bandwidth issues. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but later tonight we'll probably have this demoing with you for you. So if you want to actually, I'll actually pop in and show you what's going on under the hood, so you can kind of get an idea of what we've built. Right here is our website, bitscoop.com, and from here you can actually sign up for our service. And what we do is allow you to, in a really elegant, unified way, manage all the services you use. This is my account. It's what I use for all of our demos, and here you can see the services that we have integrated together for all these demos. All the services I use, you can see like GitHub, Steam, Twitter, all the things that you might be using to power your software. And if I want to add one, it's pretty simple. I can go out to my to our library and pick out any service at all. And we have hundreds of them. So for instance, I can look up AWS CloudFormation. If I want to integrate that, I just come in here, drop in my key, hit create, and now I can actually run and create CloudFormation templates. I've just integrated that service into my stack. See, we've abstracted away the authorization. You can see all the different services and endpoints and calls I can make. I can do some metrics on how I interact with Amazon CloudFormation, and I can fully manage the service. I can let's do another one right here. We can add Salesforce. Super easy. Just go to Salesforce, add in Salesforce. Again, it's just as easy as dropping in your credentials. And now I can do some really cool stuff. I can go and query through Salesforce all my contacts in the Salesforce CRM and say fuzzy match the name and email in my Salesforce CRM with my Twitter feed or my HubSpot CRM and create a new endpoint. So when I hand BitScoop an email or a name, it can search through all the different services that my companies use to see if that contact is in any of those systems. And I can build out and remix my data on BitScoop as a service instead of having to write the logic myself. And now this is all exposed to anything I build on BitScoop. So if I want to say build a Node app or an iOS app, I can do it right on top of BitScoop, either through our single API or through one of our SDKs in any major language or framework. You want to try the Alexa skill one more time?
If you like unlink it and relink it, it should work.
Awesome, awesome. So we're running this. We're going to be launching this Alexa skill actually as a one on the store very soon. When you run Alexa skills in developer mode, they are finicky to say the least. We're not, we're kind of snobs around here for APIs and SDKs, and Alexa's SDK is not exactly our favorite. So this actually shows a feature of BitScoop. We allow you to do all sorts of interesting dynamic linking. And cool, this all seems to be working. Shh. Let's see if we got it. Alexa, ask Ops Buddy, how is the stack doing? That looks good. That's what's supposed to be.
There were 24 visitors to the site in the last 24 hours, and 19 new visitors. 20 visitors in the last 24 hours. The API status check was succeeded. There are at least 100 open issues for your project.
Well, to be clear, the project is Node.js, not ours. So this is a cool Alexa skill you can use and extend. It's an open source Alexa skill that allows you to ask questions about your stack. So you can wire up all the major services you use, put in some information about what you want to monitor, and now with just a simple ask of your Alexa, you can get answers about your entire web stack. We're hoping to extend this a bit more. Maybe if anybody wants to work on this open source project, you can do stuff like ask Ops Buddy to launch a CloudFormation template or launch some servers in CloudTrack, or so this again is incredibly easy to use and build. If you were to build this Alexa skill, say without BitScoop, you'd probably be having to use all these different APIs independently, download their SDKs, probably write thousands of lines of code, dealing with all, each of these APIs we actually picked have different authorization systems. They query differently. Two of them are actually very badly behaved APIs. They don't follow HTTP standards. But we abstract that all away. This Alexa skill, if you go check it up on GitHub, is only a few hundred lines, and it's a very clean code base. And that's because of the power of BitScoop. To move back, so that's the Alexa skill and how it works. We also have other awesome demos. We have one that shows you how to use us for data science, one that shows you how to use us to build an app platform, and another one that shows you how to do social login, like login with Facebook or Salesforce. And you can check that out on our blog, bitscoop.com. Just to reiterate, our technology is really friggin' awesome. It really does save, not just, it saves a ton of time in development, but really where it excels is with maintenance. If you want to know what's a real pain in the butt to maintain software, and to maintain software, it's actually dealing with integrations, dealing with data sources. That's the thing that changes and breaks. And our system can gracefully adapt as data sources change. Do you have a question over here?
Yeah, what kind of turnaround do you have whenever APIs are added to one of your, like if Instagram adds some API?
Yeah,
so can we expect it?
So actually it's an open platform. So you can go and add and edit anything at all. When systems break, we use we actually build API definitions and host them in GitHub. If you check out this community page is actually a GitHub page. So what did you say, Instagram breaks?
So you can just add your own, whatever it is.
Yeah, so Instagram's right here. And this is actually the last time we updated the Instagram API is 8 months ago, because it hasn't changed yet. But when the Instagram API updates, you just roll up the new version of our what we call API map, and go. And it's real simple. You just literally, oops, I'm not logged in. This is an anonymous tab, but it wasn't. You'd see something like this. I just go, hit the button, drop in the credentials, use the new one. And the beauty of the GitHub repo is one person has to fix the Instagram API when it changes, and everybody benefits. I mean, think of that madness right now. When like the one that we used, that was a really big breaking change that everybody saw. Actually, Instagram last year changed their API in a big way. Did anybody develop on Instagram? Yeah, Instagram changed their API. What was it, June of last year? It was a huge change, and it broke, I think, on the order of 30,000 apps. And 30,000 apps had to be updated. If they were based on BitScoop, only one dev had to fix it, and all the apps would have adapted.
But isn't it possible to have scenarios where it's not so simple? Like, what if it's a brand new feature, like timeline in Facebook or whatever over time? So the previous version didn't even account for that because it didn't exist.
Yeah. So this is another great example. We have the ability to say make the Facebook's what on 2.9, I think is the name of the API. But Facebook, for instance, if Facebook releases a new version of their API, we can use our abstraction system to make it act like the old version, so you don't have to change code. Or again, adapt to the new version. This abstraction layer gives you flexibility where you don't have to change code down the line, and you can react flexibly to your needs. In fact, you can add the same API over and over again and run multiple versions at the same time. It's the beauty of an abstraction layer is being able to gracefully adapt and change and morph as your requirements change and as things upstream move around. So
I'm trying to understand these badly behaved APIs. Does that introduce more work for you guys, or are you saying something that your abstraction layer handles on an automatic basis to be introducing badly behaved APIs?
It depends, but pretty much always our abstraction layer makes the problem easier.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we do is we actually fix badly behaving APIs. So I'll give you an example. There's certain APIs out there that'll do crazy stuff. Like for instance, we'll have a query interface for contacts, right? And you query like, give me all the contacts named John, right? And 0 results will come back. And you would think that would mean it would return an empty set, but instead it throws a 404 error. Like, it wasn't a wrong error. It wasn't like a file not found. It was like that's the way they react to no results. And our system can gracefully correct for that.
Without request, I mean, so we introduce a badly behaved API. Is that a request to you guys to support it, or is that saying throw it at the platform and platform handle it?
So it all depends. Right now, our policy is we help you map onto. Our team really wants to wrangle bad APIs, especially popular ones. So if you come to us and you say, I want to integrate these 10 services, we'll help wire you up to these 10 services. And then you say, I want Salesforce and Zoho and SharePoint to all act the same way. We'll come in and help you get them all behaving in a normalized manner and build you maps that get you there. So our tools allow you to do that swiftly, and our team who have expertise will help you as well. The point being, it's a lot easier than having to go out and grab these SDKs, manage these APIs, and come up with a solution on your own. And it's a big problem. So
it's not just the SDK conversion. So every request, let's say we request to Facebook, right?
Yeah.
We go to BitScoop service. So
You
not
got
just the SDK, but your service handle the request.
So the point is to really make it so you don't have to depend on SDKs. You can use our API or our SDK instead of all these third-party SDKs. Yeah, and that's really where we come here. Integrate any service through our system. Use our SDK or API on the platform you want, and get a unified solution.
So if your service is down, does that mean my connection to Facebook will be down as well?
So for a cloud service, yes, and it is yet to go down, but but yes. So that actually kind of gets into how our platform works. We have 2 flavors. The first one is we have a cloud service that's hosted up on AWS. It's a centralized cloud that you can just sign up with GitHub or Google and go and use and pass your traffic through here. It's a metered service, and we have these really great add the BitScoop buttons, as you've seen, that allows us to easily add services, and then they just magically show up on your account or in your SDK. But if you like more control, we also sell a virtual appliance. Are you guys familiar with the AWS Marketplace or virtual machines, anything like that? Awesome. So with this, you can actually launch our technology inside of your stack. And that can be on, and it's really easy. You can launch a single box or a cluster inside your stack, and you just license the technology from us, run one or many boxes, and inside your stack, right next to your web server and your file server and your database, you can have our integration platform. Pass your traffic through there, and we'll do all sorts of really nice things for you.
So it sounds like you can kind of customize these maps, like to normalize them how you want them.
Yes, it's an entire, to get real technical with you, our maps are both a description layer where you can actually describe data, and also a meta programming layer, a place where you can do ETL and transformations. So yeah, it's a piece of JSON that you can just customize, and it's really easy to use too. We have Kyle and Mike and all the other people on our team have done a ton of work to make it really intuitive. You can just see right here. This is what the JSON looks like. It's very similar to a Swagger file or OpenAPI file. Have you heard of that? Except it goes a bit farther. And we have this really great visual editor that you can come in, and it allows you to do all sorts of quick edits really elegantly. But yeah, it's an incredibly powerful framework, and if you'd like to learn more, I can take you through it. It really takes only about an hour or so to master, and I passionately believe it's a huge ROI for people to add to their toolbox. Yeah, so this is the new flavor that we're launching right now. It's this virtual appliance. You can now take our technology. You don't have to use it in our cloud. You can spin it up and license it wherever you want, and that can be on a cloud service you use or inside your private stack. It's all wrapped up in a really elegant package that you can use on your own. And that's really BitScoop. I've been flying through here because I know we have a lot of talks going and we're running a little late. And you can sign up at bitscoop.com for free. Sign up with GitHub and Google and go. I highly suggest checking out our Alexa skills. And and if you'd like to see...
Here are a few of your enabled skills. First is lift. Arrive whenever you need it.
Go ahead.
You want to.
Yeah. And if you like this talk and you want to learn a lot more, we're going to be doing a 90-minute workshop and another talk at API Strat, this conference up in Portland. And if you're interested in this skill as well, we'll be releasing it on Open. It's been released on GitHub. You can extend it, download it, mod it. It's all built on BitScoop. And that's pretty much it. That's the story of what we came here to show. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, go right ahead.
When you say that a developer would update the API, do you mean like if an API changes and a developer updates it, does that mean one of the BitScoop users updates the API, or does that mean that BitScoop updates the API?
Sorry, something went wrong. Please try it a little while. Your Echo Dot.
Sorry, stupid question.
You angered the Alexa. No, so what you mean is, so just to specify, Instagram releases a new version of their API, and now everybody now needs to update their integration. Well, generally what happens is, and we'd like this process to be a lot more elegant, but presently it goes essentially like one person updates the map up in GitHub, and then everybody who's using that API has the opportunity to pull down and update that map. And the work of one person to come up with the migration is then shared through GitHub to everybody. And we don't automatically update everyone. We allow everyone to update on their own. how you would actually get the notification that the API failed is through our monitoring service. We have test integration built right into BitScoop. Are you guys, anybody here use Postman? Anybody familiar with Postman? Yeah, so we have Postman integration deeply built into the stack. You can see that right here. We build Postman collections, we can run Postman watchers. So as an API integration fails, you can immediately get a notification and come in and fix it. We have a roadmap to make this system much more automated, stay tuned. But that's essentially the process. So, any other questions? Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for giving me my time. Cool. Well, I'll get the next speaker up here. Yeah. Would you guys like to come in and take a moment? Yeah.
First of all, I was just watching you work with Alexa, and there's a meme that comes to mind. You should all see. It has Jeff Bezos, okay, and he says, "Alexa, buy me something from Whole Foods." Sure, Jeff, buying Whole Foods. So welcome. I'm so glad you're all here. My name is Zain Al-Sabri. I'm the CEO of Alchemy Communications. Alchemy is a data center company. We've been around for over 20 years, which in the internet world makes us really, really old. We are actually the oldest data center company run by the same management in Southern California. And you may have heard our ads. We've actually been running radio ads on public radio for over 15 years, which has really helped us as a smaller company because we go into conferences and meet with customers, and hopefully somebody in this room would have heard our ad, and then they'll say, "Hey, I've been hearing your ads for years," and that makes everybody more comfortable. So we've been getting a lot of success out of that. Alchemy is a regional data center company. We have 3 data centers in Southern California. We have 1 in downtown LA. We have 1 in LAX, and then we have 1 here in Irvine. And I get asked when I'm outside of the city, if I speak at conferences in other parts of the country, and they say, "Why do you have 3 data centers in one area?" So you have to be in LA to understand, okay? Somebody in downtown is not going to drive outside of downtown, okay? Somebody at LAX is not going downtown. And Irvine might as well be Mexico. So we actually want to be where our customers are. But what we've done is we've tied these data centers together, and we've tied them together with dark fiber, layer 2. And you guys are pretty technical. You probably know that 2 racks next to each other are tied together through layer 2. Well, through dense wave multiplexer equipment, we're able to stretch that to over 100 miles. So we're actually tied to all our data centers as if it's one big data center. And we're also, more importantly, tied to one Wilshire, because one Wilshire is one of the 10 buildings in the United States that has 80+% of the internet traffic goes through it on a daily basis. So if you can get to one of them, you're connected to the rest of the world. So we have very little packet loss, very little latency going from our customers' racks all the way to one Wilshire. Once it hits one Wilshire, there's home runs all over the country. The other 10 data centers, there's one like in New York. That's on Hudson Street, okay? You'll get there with the cleanest, fastest process. Now the only problem is the customer. If the customer receiving your stuff has poor internet, well, that's on him. Okay? But we got it there. And so we've had a lot of movie industries, people come to our data centers because they want to use that. We had Lionsgate for years because of that. So that was sort of our market. These are the subtle advantages you get when you come with Alchemy that you don't get when you go to other data centers. The other advantage of Alchemy is our history. You know, you look at most data center companies, they're REITs, real estate investment trusts. These people know nothing about technology. It's just a real estate office lease type of transaction. Or they're going to be a telco. And as a telco, you're going to see that, they're really there to sell their bandwidth. And once again, that may not be the best bandwidth for you. So we're giving you a carrier-neutral data center. We're giving you dark fiber to one Wilshire. Buy your bandwidth there if you want. So we're giving you a lot of that, okay? And just to give you the magnitude of our connectivity here, we currently have lit 100 gigs, and it's a self-healing ring. So you can get a chop on one side, and it'll just fail over. So, and we can easily add connectivity just by adding cards. Okay. Now our history, which makes us different, is we started out, there were 5 guys at the Magic Castle, the .comers, and they were complaining that their Oracle programmers were costing so much because you needed one to write it, you needed another in case that first one quit. Okay? So they were spending like 300 grand because Oracle programmers were expensive, and the guys, they're spending 10% of their time doing Oracle work, right? And same thing with their networking guys. They set up the network here and then they watch it for 3 years. Okay, same thing with their system admin guys. So as they're sitting over this table, these .comers go, why don't we create a company? And they called it Alchemy, Magic. They were at the Magic Castle, right? Why don't you create a company where we can manage the servers, and we'll take the best Oracle guys that we have on our group. We'll take the best networking guys. We'll take the best of everything, and we'll call that a company. And then we'll pay for the services as we use it, so it's fairly divided on who pays for it. Well, one of the side benefits of that is that that Oracle guy loved it because he got to do more Oracle work. He didn't want to do the lower level. And the network guy got to really do the networking work. I mean, if you talk to our network CTO, okay, Vince here, he's going to know a lot more than a Fortune 500 CTO who just manages a very limited number of equipment, whereas our guys are seeing new installations every day, they're seeing new technology every day, and when you come along, we're going to pass that on to you, okay? And there's another thing. Why do we pass it on to you? Why do we work with you? We as a data center company are committed to our customers as if they're shareholders because in our history, they were shareholders, okay? And think about this. If you're in a data center and you don't like the NOC and the way they're treating you, what happens? You leave. What if the shareholder is the customer? Who's leaving? Right? So our policies and procedures were written for the customer being the shareholder, or the customer who fired you, okay? So we always try to solve the problem for the customer first, and then we got certified, SOC 2 is what we're currently, but we were doing all of them all along. So in getting certified, we had to write those procedures down, and we haven't changed them. It's the same policy and procedures. And let me give you an example. You go to one of our competitors, I won't say the name, it ends with a 3. And they if you have a denial of service attack, they unplug you. And they don't just unplug you. They unplug you for 3 days until the attack dies, right? We fight the attack. Okay, we work with you in keeping you up. We know you can't be down for 3 days, okay? We had I may not like him, we had Bill O'Reilly's site in our data center. And he got hit with, at the time, one of the largest denial of service attacks in history, okay? And it was him, it was Rush Limbaugh, Beck, and Hannity. You catch the theme of who they were going after. The only one that stayed up was Alchemy. Okay, everyone else got unplugged. And yes, Bill O'Reilly could no longer access China or Russia or some of these other places, but that's what we did. We took the time to do that. Okay? That's the type of thing Alchemy does for its customers. We had one customer that came in, he was an aerospace firm, and he had to build something called a SCIF room, which is a secure data center room. Okay, that means you can have top secret servers in it. And first of all, they went to the big customers, or the big data centers, and they said no. I mean, they were big enough to do it, but they didn't care to do it, okay? They went to the smaller data centers, and they weren't big enough to build a SCIF room. Alchemy, we're big enough to do anything you want, and we're small enough to care, okay? So we built in this SCIF room. Well, I got a call from him. I'm telling you this story because it's timely for me this week. We got a call from him at 7 o'clock at night. And with all this redundancy built in, at the end, he ran low on budget, so he cheated, and he got one router, even though he has 2 feeds, and he only got 1 power supply, and instead of having 2, and he got the next day business contract for service. So when he went down and the power supply failed, he calls me up and says, do you have a power supply? I said, no, we don't. Just call Cisco, they'll be there in 4 hours. He goes, no. I got next business day, which since this is Friday means Monday, we put in the report, we'll get it on Tuesday, and by Tuesday I won't have a job. So we came in because we cared. We treated him like a customer, like a shareholder. We loaned him a router, we configured it, we got it up. And the worst part of it is he came to us and said, could you please not charge me because then I'd have to admit I did this fuck up. Right? Now, here's the good news. Is Matthew here? Yeah. We got a call from him. Hadn't talked to him in years. He changed jobs. Guess what? At his new job, he's moving to our data center. Okay? That's the type of company we are, and that's what with the type of people. Yes, he did. Right. So, a couple of things you should know about what the purpose of a data center and why it's a good idea to be at a data center. Okay. First, we're green. A lot of people don't realize that. If you go to an in-house data center, and right now 70% of all servers are in-house. If you go to an in-house data center, you're going to find out they don't even know their power factors. And what that means is if you don't know your power factors, if you don't have the number of circuits and the metering control your power factor, on average, your power factor is 55%. That means if you have 100 watts coming from the utility company, you're only utilizing 55%. We have lots of circuits. We have the ability to monitor it. We do monitor it. And we get about 94, 95% utilization out of every 100 watts. So we're using the power properly. Second, there's something called PUE, power utilization efficiency. If you go during the winter, if you go and buy one of these floor heaters, you're going to see that there's a certain amount of wattage, and that tells you how much heat it generates, right? It's a physics matter, right? Well, when power doesn't care if it's going through a coil on a heater or going through a computer. It doesn't care. 1 watt of power equals 1 watt of heat. And how efficient are you at removing that heat? Well, if you're not in a data center designed for it, you're very inefficient. We're talking a power factor of like almost 3. We work at it, our power factor is 1.6. That means we're using about half the power again. Okay? So you put that together, on average, servers in corporate America are burning 3 times as much power as they're burning here. So we're green. So that's a good thing about working at a data center company. I think I've used my allotted time. I do want to thank all of you for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any of the people. If you haven't seen the tour of our data center, I think you should do it. It'll take a few minutes. We'll take you through, and you can see what we do. Thank you.
I mean, just as an aside, I've had a number of chances to go in that data center and quite take a tour. You will be happy. You will be happy you did. It's an awesome setup.
Yeah,
it's
a huge setup for after. If anybody wants to go, I think this says it gives us a tour. And I think I'll make sure that
I'm having flashbacks to AV Club. All right.
Yo, bathroom break quick? We need to go?
Yeah, probably. A lot of beer in the house.
3 minutes break. Go. Run.
Where's that go? I gotta go.
Okay, the scroll wheel's got you covered. Dude,
Hey Zane, what's the cross street on 1 Wilshire? Is that like
We're on 7th Street. We're on the other side of the freeway, 1200 West 7th Street.
Or other side, you mean towards the ocean?
Yes, yeah. We're less than a mile from Wilshire. And as I said, we have so much fiber between the 2 buildings. It's might as well be there.
but the node there is in 1 Wilshire.
We have a big presence at 1 Wilshire.
So where's that? I'm just curious where that is. Is that like east side of town?
Oh, where's 1 Wilshire?
Physically, yeah.
Okay. It's literally, you drive Wilshire Boulevard at the end.
Okay.
That's the building right there. One of the reasons you don't want to actually be in 1 Wilshire more than you have to is 1 Wilshire was a law office. It doesn't have enough room between floors to have a proper raised floor. And it just doesn't, you can't take the heat density of a fully stocked rack. So it got there because the telcos put it.
So what else is in 1 Wilshire?
Oh, no. This is every data center. In these 10 buildings, the reason they're so powerful is they have all the internet. And anybody who wants to have access to the internet. So somebody in New York who wants to talk to Alchemy, that's one of the advantages. They're going to go to Hudson Street to One Wilshire to us. Boom, it's going to be fast. A lot of the problems, you're going to have packet losses and you're going to have latency when a router gets involved, because the router's making a decision, okay? From One Wilshire to any of the other 9, 10, there are no routers. It's just a home run, beam of light with repeaters. That's why it's so important. And you're still going to see most of the data centers are located within 100 miles of all the data centers of these 10 hubs. And the reason for that is because of the limited density of multiplexing technology. Now, of course, there's a separate for Microsoft, Yahoo, you build your own world to go to. So they can go where there's an energy cost.
Did you run into an incident where some construction worker cut your cable?
Actually, in this data center, they were late on delivering one of the links, okay? And we were making the debate, should we go up without the self-delivery? I mean, what are the odds, right? Remember when they did Carmageddon? Yeah. Okay, well, that's where our run was through, and they chopped it. Okay, and it was down for a week as they rerouted. And we're like, oh my God, I'm so glad we didn't go up.
No, how do I get back to the, where's the other setup? Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'll just do that one. We'll do it live. So weird.
I did.
Scroll where it works. Nice.
Oh, you did?
We do the
Yeah, I'm one of them. Yeah. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Definitely.
Do you want mic or do
No, at least
Let's bring it. You never know. Normally we're in the breweries and like it's super loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you see their house stuff, you're gonna go to Austin.
Great way to
So the maps that you see right now,
I
those are sort of generic maps. They just have
So.
generic connections. But a map is how you pick your own connection. So you have your own unique map. You just want to have sort of generic names, the different requests that you want.
Yeah. See who's
good.
I was like.
Can I bring anybody a beer or anything? Appetizer, beer,
What are nachos?
Make the relationship happen. Go on our website. Yeah, it's a series of really short videos. So
I make the gifts.
it's sort of taking from the top.
Right.
It's basically how you
Ready to go?
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're on our system now, man. Oh, no, you're not getting that. That's a two-factor authentication. All right. We're friends, right? All right. Are you ready?
Well, it's
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Is everyone back from the bathroom? Yeah. Stragglers. Yeah. You may just take that with myself. I was like, oh my gosh. It's going pretty quick off of. And then some MacGyvered internet connection. Yeah.
No.
name stack.
Yeah.
You just
I know. We're mainly just looking at the number down.
Okay.
Somebody I think want the real everything
Like, right?
Right.
Sig, we're not making you stay out in the hall anymore. You can come in, bro.
Yeah, you can have it. You can attach them. So you say, I don't want any account numbers in my system.
All right, double fisted.
This one's empty.
All right, there you go. No judgment.
Now that's what's
Well, I'm taking
No
stuff.
trash cans.
you can hack it. So your system will see that.
You eat it.
That's
Oh, so that's not in our PowerPoint format. It's just like no, it's just yeah, cool.
Is this your model?
This guy.
Yeah, you're going to be creating
Like my wife was like,
Right.
you gotta go to class.
Inside
You
the eatery, yes.
know,
There was, like, before you exit. But in a room like this.
as the teacher she is.
somewhere in the document.
Yeah.
If you went to meetings.
So you're like,
you can
You do it twice.
Why should she be responsible?
I've done it, I've never actually.
Garbage. So if you have like a wrapper and you get something on the subway, you can't just like get off the train and then just throw it in
You
the
get super fine
think.
and then get arrested.
On break, we're still on break or?
Or they
No,
just
we're
charge
good.
your hand.
We're good?
Yeah.
Good to go?
Yeah, you gotta make fun of Sig for hiding out the
All right.
yelling at him when he's like sitting there like staring through it, just be like, no, we're closing the door.
It's like, all right. I guess before we get started, who here is familiar with data analytics or business intelligence, data science? I would say that's a good majority of people. Yeah. All right. So my name's Eric. This is Scott. We're with a company called Looker. Looker is based out of Santa Cruz, California, just south of San Francisco. Not sure if anyone ever makes it up north, but we're the other SoCal. Yeah, right. We invented surfing. Is that what they say?
Your peer in Santa Cruz is rated the #1 peer.
There we go. We got something going for us. Right?
Yeah, but they lost
Yeah.
Surf City, USA to Huntington.
No.
We trademarked it first.
Huntington lost it to Santa Cruz.
Damn it!
Oh, we got it back. So we are a data analytics company. We help companies like Snapchat, PayPal, Uber, Headspace, Soylent, all make sense out of their data. So what does that really mean, right? So you are a non-technical user like myself. I want to ask questions of the data. How do I get access to that? I usually have to go back to someone technical like Scott or many of you here in this room to ask and answer those questions of the data, right? So what do? You probably write a manual SQL query against the database. You maybe munge everything in Excel and deliver some sort of visualization. So what we're trying to do is really make data readily available to everyone inside of an organization. The way we do that is, where to scroll. Okay, let's see. There we go.
I got you.
The way we do that is work out the finger through 3 real core tenets. Is that a lot of legacy tools out there in the space, like the MicroStrategies, Business Objects, Cognos of the world, they're really great at data governance and creating standards across an organization. The second wave of BI tools, really great at self-service data visualizations, but there's this huge gap. And what we're really trying to do is leverage your current infrastructure and that analytical power of that database or data warehouse that you've set up, so data lake, and start surfacing out insights to your end users. Through our reusable business logic, what we'll call our semantic layer, this is where you create all of your core metrics for your end users, right in one Git version controlled environment. So gone are the days of lots of different spreadsheets floating around the office, no clear single source of truth. What we really want to do is create this data dictionary for your end users to really get access to that data. And then finally, we're not one of these slow, clunky, old tools out there. We want to leverage today's technology, so we're a web-based tool, so everyone can get access to it anywhere. And so finally, what does this look like? Dun, dun, dun. Drum roll, please. Thanks, man. So oftentimes you have all of these disparate sources of data. how do you usually get those into one centralized data warehouse? You could leverage an ETL process like BitScoop. You could leverage some other ETL pipeline that's out there. You might want to write your own ETL script to get that all into one centralized data lake. And through our reusable business logic, which we call LookML, it's an agile modeling layer. This is where you create all those custom dimensions, measures, joins, all those core metrics and KPIs that are important to your end users, all right there in a version-controlled environment. And so through the web interface, as a non-technical person, I can go in and ask and answer my own questions, get to the why of the data, not just the what, by essentially writing a raw SQL query against the database in a point-and-click fashion. So I'm able to visualize the data, able to export the data to Excel. And because Looker is a data platform, you're able to schedule out email deliveries. So if you have a specific maybe dashboard, report, or anything that's really important to the business, you can schedule that out via email. If you're maybe an e-commerce company and you have some sort of thresholds that you need to meet, like inventory levels, right? You can set up a webhook to trigger off inventory levels to send you a notification saying, hey, my inventory levels are low. You can embed Looker into your own maybe portal. Through an iframe, you can embed it into maybe a CRM system, so you can actually look at the data right there without having to go to another system to get access to it. And then getting back to the whole APIs, if you want to leverage our full RESTful API to really customize a workflow, you can really do that by really leveraging our API. And Scott will actually get into that here in a second in terms of what that looks like. But when companies actually leverage our API, it's really in terms of the embedded analytics standpoint, in terms of what does that process look like? How do I go into a portal and actually expose data to my customers without actually looking like I'm going into a third-party system? Yeah. So with that, go ahead, Scott.
Cool. So who here has written SQL? Okay. How many of you like writing SQL code? So what Looker is essentially doing, I'm going to bring your seat here, so I can sit down while I'm running through this demo. Oh,
watch out for that. It's not for me, it's for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that very much. Oop, I went to the wrong one here. Oh, yeah, you got me? I did, yeah.
If you hit the wrong button, chaos will ensue.
So there's I already brought up a window here.
Oh, it's probably minimalized.
It's right. I think it's this one.
There we go.
Cool.
Let's do this.
So what Looker's modeling layer is essentially doing is allowing your end users to write SQL automatically, because in that modeling layer, you've set up all of the join relationships between the tables within your database, right? So, I'll just kind of go from the top down here. You're using BitScoop to pull in all of your data from all these sources, centralize it in a centralized warehouse. And then what Looker is going to be able to do is, in a point-and-click fashion, someone's generating the SQL code, running that directly to your database, not running it through an extract, but it's going right to the database to return live results, right? So I'll just kind of go into how Looker, does this by just jumping directly into our modeling layer, and I can kind of show off kind of one use case here. So, sure, let's see here. Perfect, got it. Perfect. So I'm going to move into this project here, and this is a bunch of e-commerce data that we're going to describe through the modeling layer here. So. Now in this section here, this is a Looker project. It's Git linked, so you're going to be able to version control this, roll things back, make sure that you're able to incorporate it into your existing development process. So on the left hand here, you have these view files, and these are representations of tables within that database, right? So I have my order items table, I have my users table, I have my inventory items table. And what Looker does right off of the bat is it scans your database and says, okay, well, I have all of these tables. I'm also going to define each of those columns as a dimension. So Looker is going to be writing a lot of this for you right off the bat. So in my order items table, I have an ID column, I have an inventory items column, right? A user ID column. So you've defined kind of each of the dimensions within that table. And on top of that, now you can start to build custom measures by using the fields that are already existing in your database, right? So I'll kind of jump to an example down here where I'm calculating a value called total gross margin. Let me search for that. Total gross margin. Cool. So up here we have sale price, right? This is a column that's coming from your database as a column. And we want to start to build on top of that by generating some custom measures that maybe didn't already exist within your database, right? So here we have gross margin, right? It's referencing your sale price. And then also pulling in for this gross margin calculation an inventory items cost column as well that exists in another location. And now on top of this, we're going to start to reference gross margin a little bit further down here, where we're just going to sum that dimension that we've defined. So the way that this ends up looking, we're just wrapping that previous calculation within some function, just like any SQL that you've written. So what this allows us to do is, we can have that chain of events trickle down into not just your SQL code, but also your entire project, right? So if your accounting team or someone comes to you with an update to how to calculate gross margin, right? You would just update that definition in this single location. And then anywhere that gross margin is referenced within your entire project is going to update to reflect that change in your definition of gross margin. And on top of that, any reports that you build on top of that are also going to update to reflect that change in definition. So the second file is just the model file here. And I know I'm going kind of in a deep dive technically, but here's where you're going to be defining the join relationship between all of the tables within your database, right? So here I have my order items table. And I'm going to make sure that if Looker needs to pull in any fields from my order facts table, I'm going to ensure that I'm going to join on these fields. So now that I've defined this join relationship in this single location, now users can start to run reports and pull in fields from different tables in my database. And Looker is automatically going to know how to join all those tables up when I do want to run reports on that data. So kind of now opening that up to your end user in a really simple and easy to use environment. I'm going to open up my a set of data here, order items and users data, into a new explore section. And this is kind of one of the more important parts of the demo because it shows off how we're exposing fields to end users through a modeling layer and allowing people to run reports very easily in a point and click manner. So say, for example, I want to look at the total number of, the total gross margin by day for the past 90 days. So the way that I'm going to do that is just pull those fields in super easy. And it's very easy for, a business user to be able to do this. And so maybe I want to filter this for the past 90 days here. I'll kind of show you what Looker is doing in the background. As I start to add fields from the left-hand panel, it's going to automatically write all of the SQL queries necessary in order to fulfill the requirements of the fields picked on the left-hand side. So, a user comes in here and maybe it's, I'm already going to convert to the local time zone of the user. Maybe I don't want to see this as date, but I want to break it out by month. It's automatically going to convert that to month. And now I want to bring in my total gross margin here. I want to bring that in as a value, and it's going to make sure that because I've defined that join relationship, join in my inventory items column so that I can calculate that total gross margin metric. And then on top of that, like all of those case wins, SQL queries that you've had to write over and over and again, like say I want to break this up by the age tier of my end user, I can bring that into the report. And we defined that SQL within the modeling layer. So anytime they pull age tier into the report, it's going to be consistent across your entire organization. So you're defining your data metrics in a single location, and then as I add fields, it's just going to write the most performance SQL in order to return those results. And so we're not going to an extract again, so this is not a black box. You could run this into, you can put this into any SQL runner. And all we're going to do at this point is just run this query against the database to return those results in live time. So here we have total gross margin for the past 90 days, broken up in this case by month, but that doesn't really make sense. So maybe we break that by date here. And I've completely broken everything.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. Here, let me help you out.
Yeah, thank you so much. You have some tricky settings on this. Perfect. Thank you.
For advanced users only.
Yeah. So once we've returned that result set, now we can just start to visualize this in any way we want. So for your end users, maybe you want to have this just on a table, or as a line chart or area chart or what have you. If you've latitude and longitudinal data, we can map that automatically to a map here as well. So as far as the visualization standpoint, it's really all customizable. We can add values and things like that. But, how am I doing on time?
I think we're pretty good. How about 10 more minutes? Is that good?
Sure thing. So I'm going to kind of open up how this is all included into like a website and embedded environment, and then we'll leave a little bit of time for questions. So let's see if I can get to this website, because oops. Now you guys get to look at my.
Go crazy with the logging credentials here. Gosh.
Oh, thank you. My spelling is pretty bad. There we go. Oh yeah, thank you. Of course. Should have set this up beforehand. I don't think I even remember my password because it's already saved. And I'm like, there we go. Okay, cool. Don't save that. You don't need access to that. All right. So
I didn't get all those.
yeah. So this is kind of everything surfaced within an online portal. So I'm a user, and what you saw me do is log in as an Allegra K user. So all of the data is going to be filtered just for that individual customer. And what we're doing is essentially just adding a where clause to every single one of the SQL statements that we're returning. So all this information, once we've defined all of our data definitions and we're able to run queries against the database, now we can expose that via, in this case, just an API. So each one of these lines here, we're just running some query against the database to return those results as maybe a single field in this case. And on top of that, we can also expose now all of those dashboards and all of those reports that we've pre-built that are just going to be filtered for that individual user in general, and be able to filter down data. Again, all that I'm doing here is applying a where clause to each one of these statements, and then these SQL queries in each one of these tiles, and running that against the database as well. So that's pretty much all I have for the demo, you guys. Questions?
Yes. In addition to being CEO of Alchemy, for-profit corporation, I'm a volunteer to president of a nonprofit, therapeutic living center for the blind. And I got over 100 employees. And I noticed in both corporations, they have the same question, cash flow. Okay? And the biggest question mark isn't money going out. You have a lot of control over that, money coming in. And so in Alchemy, I'd like to know, based on patterns of customers, how they pay. We might discover that seasonally they pay quicker this month than they don't pay in other months. We might see it's the same thing in the nonprofit. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to easily access accounting records so that we can look at the patterns of where the income sources are and know that, okay, I expect over the next week to generate, on average, based on past history, this much money first week of November.
So applying kind of a projection model to some of your basic accounting. Yeah, so you would be able to write that within the modeling layer itself, maybe have a field that's projected values and have that calculation basically maybe on a running 7-week average, be able to project out into the future. And yes, yeah, Looker can handle functions and calculations and projected values like that.
How expensive is that type of service? I wanted to use it just for those things.
Looker as a service.
Yeah, is that what it is? Or?
Yeah. So it's a typical
subscription-based model. So it's anywhere in the range of $3,000 to $5,000 per month, depending on case and what we're doing. The only thing we can't do in terms of what it sounds like you're looking to do is predictive analytics. We leverage a partner to do predictive analytics. So they've actually built a block, which is templatized code for Looker within their system.
Is this dashboard real time? Like, does it really have caching to the database?
Yeah, so we do have a caching layer on top of this. So say the first user that comes in and runs this report in the morning, runs it, it's going to go live against that database. The default is to cache for 1 hour, but you can always tune that up and down. So the next user is going to come in, run this report, and it's going to pull from cache instead of the database directly. But you can always tune that if you want to extend that, and your data isn't really that fresh. You have a lot of it. Maybe it only updates once every 24 hours. You can update that cache to sit for 24 hours. And then you can always, if I'm a user and I want to come in here and just rerun everything, I can always clear cache and refresh. So run it directly again from the database.
How do you guys handle NoSQL?
So we only work on SQL compliant databases. So typically with NoSQL, what we want to do is leverage an ETL partner to get that into a SQL compliant database, because essentially LookML is an abstraction of SQL. So we're the go-between platform between your data and exposing the data.
So for like data infrastructures like Mongo, we would leverage someone like Liam and leveraging his ETL to get that into a SQL database. You have a Hadoop cluster. We can run Spark, Hive, or Impala on top of that as a SQL interface.
For the LookML, let's say I connect a Redshift database, does it scan my Redshift table and kind of convert those?
Yeah, so it'll automatically scan all of your tables and all the columns, and then load that in and write about 96, 97% of the LookML automatically for you. And then it also uses some fuzzy joins to say I have a user table with an ID column and a transactions table with a user ID field, and it'll write the general relationships. It's just up to someone who understands the data a little bit to go in there and just audit to make sure the relationships match up, and then maybe add some of those custom fields like some measures and average numbers. Yes, yeah, right off the bat. We can also take SQL queries that have already been written, pull those into our project, and then actually materialize the result set at a certain time back in your database for quick access as well.
From a visualization standpoint, how are you designing these charts, or saying the defaults? Is there a recommendation engine, or is it entirely up to the user? How do you approach that? Yeah, so for all of our visualizations, we use D3JS to render these. You can also, we have a set of custom visualizations as well. So you can take the output of any of these result sets, load that through any visualization in that library, and output any customization or visualization you want. In terms of defaults or recommendation engines, set those things, or a lot of times users will go with the default, whatever you.
Yeah. So
give to them, right? So.
Yeah. So I mean, with this, we kind of open up that side to how extensive you want your visualization library to be.
Yeah, for that UI demo, is it like embedded or is it like through API?
Oh, so this one's embedded. So this is where we're just embedding the iframe from one of the dashboards we pre-created. Yeah. So, but as far as the API goes, you can use it in either one way. We don't charge for use of the API as well. So the entire platform is open to you. So within this kind of company overview, now we're utilizing the API in this section as well. And you can utilize that to rerun queries and render results.
And there's no limit to how many people can use it.
Awesome. Do we have anything else? Because I think we got our last speaker of the night, and then I think we're all going to moseying through the data center tour. So, yeah, that's you. Yeah, you would be the last but not least.
Well, I know I'm the least favorite person here because I'm the last one up. But the good news is we fed you and we gave you drinks while you were here before the presentation, so I'm not holding you hostage.
You got the wrong group, man. We're going to be out for another couple of hours.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, the night's early, right? So.
This is Saturday, right?
So
all right, great. So I'm gonna get through these 125 slides quickly. My name is Chris Reckner. I'm the CIO of CloudTrack. So welcome. At the end of this presentation, we're going to open our doors to you for the data center tour. So those of you who want to tour, I believe Igor, raise your hand back there. He's the man. So look for him. He'll be taking you folks back through there. Unfortunately, compliance regulations and rules prohibit us from bringing beer in a data center.
What kind of data center?
I know. We got to get up to speed. But we're getting ready to put a vending machine in there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to spend a couple of minutes and I'm going to do a quick magic trick. And then I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit about what we're all about. So what you see here is our orchestration layer. It's our UI that we wrote. This UI sits on top of Apache Cloud Stack, which is the foundational element for our orchestration. This is a private cloud. We wrote this UI based on input from local CIOs, from enterprise to mid-enterprise organizations through Orange County and LA. And a couple of things came out loud and clear. They needed the ability to make sysadmins, sysengineers productive quickly, quick time to value. That was something that we heard over and over again. Yes, there are those DevOps teams that are involved. They need access at the code level to do what they need to do. We 100% support that. This is fully customizable. It is single tenant. So in our private cloud, everything that's allocated to a client is dedicated to them, including the software layer. So they can do that customization. But guess what? There's still another side of IT that exists. And those guys need to be productive. So we needed to give them a tool they could get in 5 clicks or less, and they can orchestrate without short learning curve. The second thing is we need to give them visibility tools. It's not the tools that we provide here from a visibility standpoint are not a get to root analysis. It's a quick at a glance what's happening. We expose at the physical host level performance metrics, which you don't get from public clouds. And then we also expose at the instance level. I'm not going to have time today to demo any of that, so just believe me. And then the third thing is that, you know, snapshots are such a cumbersome pain in the butt. So I don't know how many of you guys have had to deal with managing snapshots. But what we've done is we did kind of an interesting job of presenting snapshots into a calendar. So those IT folks could see exactly what snapshots were being performed, at what time, and they could prevent that data storm effect that you would get when you're trying to manage all these different snapshots that you're doing at a particular given point in time. Okay, so now you're all wondering, well, where's that magic trick? Well, let's get to that. So what you see here is our dashboard, and you'll notice I've got 3 VMs that are running in this dashboard, and I have 2 networks.
Possible. Why don't we just a little bit of visibility? There you go.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah.
We've got 3 networks, but 2 to really care about. We've got a DMZ and we've got a LAN. What I'm going to do, back to my dashboard. Actually, we'll go right here. It is a demo. I'll just preface it by saying that in case it doesn't work. But it will work. Okay, so what I have here is a bash script. And as you can see, well, you probably can't see because it's small, but there's not a lot of code here, right? It's just standard bash. You guys are looking at this going, oh, well, there's nothing complicated about that. I would agree. And what I have over here is I've got my command that I'm going to execute. And as it's executing, okay, it's spinning, so it's working. It's still spinning. We'll give it a minute. Well, but it's still. Oh, is it launching? All right, we got some feedback from the peanut gallery. Okay, there we go. I still have a job, right? Okay, so what's happening is all these VMs are being spun up, right? So I'm spinning up an FTP, which sits in the DMZ, IIS in the DMZ. I've got a SQL box that's going in the DMZ. I've got a jump box, an RDP jump box that's going in the DMZ, and then I've got a bunch of other stuff that's going to come up in the private network. It'll just be. Okay, so you get the idea, right? The point that I'm trying to make here is that our framework, the underlying components of our framework, is a series of automation tools. And Ansible is a core component of that. And what we strive to do is we strive to launch or leverage automation to the fullest extent so the clients can deploy, orchestrate, be productive in these tool sets quickly. And the same orchestration automation tool set that we built is also how we're able to live in any data center anywhere. So today we have strategic relationships with Alchemy, with H5, with Telepacific. We can extend ourselves into any of these data centers at a moment's notice. And when we ship gear to those data centers, the data center will rack, stack, power, give us connectivity. Once that's done, we remotely connect into that rack of gear or racks of gear. We launch our automator daemon, and we can configure that entire rack of gear in 15 minutes or less. In fact, we actually considered putting wait states in the code to slow it down because it was too fast. People were like, just doing anything? Is this magic? And so once that orchestration is done, the next step, once that build is done, the next step is the orchestration. And so making this really, really easy to work with means that we can continue that mantra of, okay, it's built, it's running, and now I can make use of it and put it into production and do something with it. We also, as a private cloud provider, what we've seen more and more in the industry is organizations that have particular philosophies around data and data storage, right? I need my Tintries for VMware storage. I need my Scale IO for VDI. I need this, I need that. And I want to bring that storage. Great, bring it. Clients can bring storage and they can plug it into our private cloud. And all these storage platforms all have front-facing open APIs. It's very easy for us, if we don't already, it's very easy for us to write a connector, expose that storage through our software, and now they can orchestrate. Same thing with security. Cannot, as a private cloud provider, we cannot mandate what security constructs or framework a client runs. Just can't. So if they want to bring their FireEyes and their Palo Alto, have at it, bring it. So it's one of the benefits of being able to control, if you will, the real estate of the data center that we're housed in, because we can do that. We can bring elements of colo into private cloud. So I did that quick. Because I know you're all looking at me like, I just want to get out of here. So I'll stop. I did a little magic trick. You got a quick glimpse of this. You'll know how to reach me somehow. I'm not sure how. But if you have any questions, anything, you want to do a further deep dive demo, you want to know more about what we've done, I'd be happy to spend more time with you. Any questions? Yes, sir. Oh, no? Okay.
I was going to ask that.
Oh, yeah.
So say one of those machines goes down, right? Like, how does it recover from that?
Well, so these VMs are set up in HA mode, so they're designed to stay up all the time. So if there's a failure or there's a problem on any of the gear, any of the hardware, it'll live migrate into another platform. So all the platforms that we do in these clusters are all N+1. So there's always redundancy from a hardware perspective. Now, obviously, if there's corruption in the operating system, something happens at that level, there's nothing we can do. We take it from the hypervisor down and ensure that you're always up and running. If something happens outside of that, then that's not something that we can prevent. We're really partner oriented, so we don't really sell direct to the public, if you will. We work through partnerships, and a lot of those partnerships are MSPs, data center providers, and they're providing a lot of those elements of monitoring and uptime in areas that we can't provide. But we are a 24/7 lights on data center, so we do provide that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Hey, something's down, something's happened. We'll notify that client immediately, so they're aware, and then they'll engage however they want with whatever technical team they have, or if they want us to provide hands and eyes support, we can do that.
So like contracts would be run through your system, you would need an external system.
Well, we do health checks. So within our software, we're monitoring, we're checking the health of the systems. We don't run our systems. We do calculations on MTBF, on a storage chassis, on a server chassis. So we ensure that we're not running anywhere more than 60% of MTBF, and then we decide to do a technology refresh. We do technology refreshes every 3 years, going into the 4th year at no cost to the client. Yeah. Well, there's one more thing too. We also leverage Zabbix as another monitoring tool to kind of be a deeper dive than this. And so it's open source. And so we ultimately will sit down with a client, help them map out how they really want to monitor for root cause analysis their systems, and we'll build out those Zabbix monitor agents, if you will, or monitor sets. Did I answer your question? Yeah.
One of the biggest advantages, like we were talking about this, the thing is work agnostic on the back end. So you go to the template, click on the template, you can actually upload your own ISO. So we don't have to depend on the public cloud where they have to put a template that matches what's with their thing. You can upload an ISO of any flavor you want and create that as an appliance. Yeah.
And what I just launched here, those VMs all came from Core OS. So they were all documented.
So if you do a register ISO, right, you see a list of all the operating system that support.
Apple, that's not supposed to be here. You guys didn't see that.
Actually, it does support Apple. So Core OS containers, pretty much anything that you guys want to build without having to put in a template. You can load that up and customize it, freeze it, and then deploy that.
I don't see the mock operating system in there. I'm aging myself. Anybody know what the mock operating system is? It's the precursor to what you see in the Mac operating system today, derived from Berkeley BSD, was something that Steve Jobs pioneered after leaving his previous organization.
Can I just get an unsolicited plug in here for the last two speakers? I just have to say I speak at a lot of meetups. It's kind of my thing, and I really do love the last two speakers. I just have to say, when it comes to Looker, I've worked in the data visualization space with Tableau and Qlik and a dozen other systems, and I just recently did a technology review space, and really was Periscope data and Looker really kind of bubbled to the top, and my friends at Climate Perkins had nothing but incredible things to say about how you guys are executing the space, price, features, customization, feedback. And when it comes to DevOps and servers, like Alchemy and CloudTrack have blown me away. I've worked with all the major cloud providers. I've been deploying stuff to stacks for 10 years. I worked at Server Beach a long time ago when people actually had their own metal, which doesn't exist anymore, and I can't endorse you guys higher, especially.
Thank you.
And it's early days right now in both my interactions with you guys, but I couldn't be more impressed.
Well, I was going to say more, but I'm afraid if I say any more, I may take that compliment back. So, yeah, we're done. We'll leave it at that. So, Igor, you want to do a quick?
If anyone would like to.
And to everybody on the stream, goodbye.